Good afternoon, dear students. Today we will discuss about the part of the brain that is known as brain stem, which consists of midbrain, pons and medulla from above downwards. Here in this picture we are seeing the inferior aspect of the cerebral hemisphere. So this is the inferior surface of the cerebral hemisphere of the both sides. You can see here this frontal pole, this is temporal pole, this is temporal lobe, and this part we are seeing the lower half of the cerebellum here, and in between the two halves of the cerebellum we can see here this is the brainstem. This consists of midbrain, then pons, then medulla. Okay, so you cannot appreciate midbrain here because it is in the more deeper aspect. So this brainstem, it connects the cerebrum with the cerebellum. So if you see sideways like this, you can see that this brainstem, this is brainstem, this is the brainstem, consists of midbrain, most superiorly, then pons, then medulla. This brainstem connects the cerebrum, that means cerebral cortex, with the cerebellum. This one is the cerebellum, this is the cerebral cortex. So brainstem connects the cerebral cortex with the cerebellum through three peduncles, that is one pair of superior cerebellar peduncle, then middle cerebellar peduncle, one pair of, and one pair of inferior cerebellar peduncle. Now this pons, the part of the brainstem that is known as pons, it acts as a bridge. The meaning of the pons is bridge, and it acts as a bridge between the cerebrum and the cerebellum. And among the three parts of the brainstem, that is the midbrain, pons and medulla, midbrain is the smallest part. So let us see one by one. So if we see carefully again at the inferior surface of the cerebral hemisphere, so this is the ventral aspect of the pons, and the midbrain region is above this. This is the position of midbrain in this whole viscera. So midbrain is related to optic tract. Okay, so this one is chiasma, optic chiasma, and these are the optic tracts of the two sides. So midbrain is related externally with the optic tract, and there is in the lateral to the optic tract. So this portion is known as uncus. Okay, this is the part of the temporal lobe. This is uncus. So midbrain related laterally with the uncus. Okay, and parahippocampal gyrus, that is the posterior continuation of the uncus, that is the parahippocampal gyrus. And below the optic tract there is position of basal vein is there, and there is posterior cerebral artery is there, and at the junction of the midbrain and pons, this region, there is superior cerebellar artery is there. So midbrain is related here with basal vein, then posterior cerebral artery, and at the junction of the midbrain and pons there is superior cerebellar artery. So this one is posterior cerebral artery, this one is the superior cerebellar artery. So here in this specimen I have separated the brainstem and cerebellum from this whole brain, and we are seeing the ventral aspect of the brainstem here. So this portion is midbrain, this is pons, and this portion is medulla. This conical shaped part is medulla. So in the midbrain part externally we will get here at the level of superior colliculus, that is present in the posterior aspect of the midbrain, dorsal aspect of the midbrain, we will get 4 spherical structure, one pair above and another pair below. These are present in the dorsal aspect of the midbrain, and these are known as the superior colliculus and this is known as the inferior colliculus. So at the level of superior colliculus, in the ventral aspect of the midbrain, we will get, at this level, we can see the exit of oculomotor, that is the third cranial nerve here, from here, and at the level of inferior colliculus, from we will get exit of trochlear nerve. So that is the fourth cranial nerve here. From this region we will get exit of trochlear nerve, and that goes finally towards the ventral aspect. So trochlear nerve or fourth cranial nerve is the only nerve that is taking origin, that is being exited from the dorsal aspect of the brainstem. All the others nerve are present in the dorsal ventral aspects. If we place the viscera like this, so these are the two cerebral peduncles of the midbrain, this one, and this is the region what is known as interpeduncular fossa. This is the region, these are the two cerebral peduncles, that is a part of the midbrain, this one, and this is interpeduncular fossa. So in the interpeduncular fossa we can see some structure. This area is interpeduncular fossa. We can see these are the mammillary bodies. And then we can see the infundibular stalk, that is known as pituitary stalk. You cannot appreciate here. We will see in the interpeduncular fossa, this is the mammillary bodies, then infundibular or pituitary stalk, and we will get the posterior perforated substance here. So this is the region where the interpeduncular fossa, in between the two cerebral peduncles of the midbrain, we will get the mammillary bodies and the pituitary stalk and the posterior perforated substances. Then superior relation. What is the superior relations of this midbrain? Midbrain superiorly related with the splenium of corpus callosum. So superiorly we can see it is forming the posterolateral boundary of the interpeduncular fossa. This is the region of interpeduncular fossa, and midbrain is forming the posterolateral boundary of the interpeduncular fossa. So what are the content of interpeduncular fossa? That is the mammillary body, then infundibular stalk or pituitary stalk, and this posterior perforated substance. And the superior relation. What is the superior relation of the midbrain? Midbrain is superiorly related with the splenium of the corpus callosum. So this is the region. So here is the position of corpus callosum, and this portion, this inferior part of the corpus callosum is splenium. So midbrain is superiorly related with the splenium of the corpus callosum, and the great cerebral vein is also present here in the superior relation of the midbrain, and also the pulvinar end of the thalamus. So if we see like this, so this is thalamus, you can see here, this is thalamus of the left side and this is thalamus of the right side. So this is the pulvinar end of the thalamus, this portion that is related with superiorly with the midbrain. Now if we see the cross section of the midbrain, we are seeing now from side, this upper part is midbrain, this part is pons, this is the forward bulging convexity there, this is pons, and lower conical part, truncated conical part, this is medulla. So if you see the cross section of the midbrain, so you can see, you can appreciate that this convex part of the pons, this is ventral aspect, and this portion is, this part is dorsal aspect. So if you see the cross section, so we can appreciate here that It consists of cerebral peduncles ventrally and tectum dorsally. So, these projected parts are known as cerebral peduncles, through which the fibers of the crus cerebri goes downward towards the spinal cord, and the posterior part is known as tectum. Okay. So, in the cross section we can see here this projected part, this is known as cerebral peduncle, and the posterior part is as a whole known as tectum. Again, this cerebral peduncle is divided into three parts, from in front to back, that is tegmentum, substantia nigra, from behind forward it is tegmentum, substantia nigra and crus cerebri. So, these are two cerebral peduncles, and this portion posterior part is known as tectum. Again, this cerebral peduncle divided into three parts, those are from behind forward, those are tegmentum, then substantia nigra. You can see, you can appreciate this pigmented part here. You can appreciate this pigmented part here. So, this is crus cerebri, this portion, and in front of the crus cerebri there is in front of substantia nigra, this pigmented part is known as substantia nigra. In front of substantia nigra there is crus cerebri. So, tegmentum, substantia nigra, then crus cerebri. Okay. And in the tectum there are presence of 4 colliculi. So, this area is tectum. There is presence of 4 colliculi are there. From this specimen you can appreciate better. So, these are the 4 collicules in the tectum part of the midbrain. One pair of superior colliculi, another pair of inferior colliculi. And these colliculi are separated by one cruciform sulcus. And the upper end of the cruciform sulcus lodges the pineal gland. So, if you place the viscera like this, so this is the upper end of the cruciform sulcus, this is the position of pineal gland. Okay. Now, from this superior colliculus in the dorsal aspect of the midbrain, one white fiber bundle goes towards the thalamus at the metathalamic part in the lateral geniculate body. So, if the viscera placed like this, from this superior colliculus, one white fiber goes towards the metathalamus in the lateral geniculate body, and it takes part in the visual reflex. And from the inferior colliculus, same white fibers goes towards the metathalamus and towards the medial geniculate body of the metathalamus. So, this is known as inferior brachium, which goes from the inferior colliculus, it goes up to the medial geniculate body and concerned with the auditory reflex, and from the superior colliculus through superior brachium there is a connection up to the lateral geniculate body of the metathalamus, and that is concerned with the visual reflex. Now, you can appreciate here this pigmented part, this is known as substantia nigra, and this is coronally oriented and extends from the upper pons up to the subthalamic region like this. It is coronally oriented. Substantia nigra, it consists of two parts, pars reticularis and pars compacta. Now, so here in this specimen we can see this is at the region of the inferior colliculus. So, from the inferior colliculus lateral to it we can appreciate this is the superior cerebellar peduncle here. This is superior cerebellar peduncle here that connects the midbrain with the cerebellum. And in between these two superior cerebellar peduncle there is superior medullary velum, and this superior cerebellar peduncle, those are converging, and it forms the upper lateral boundary of the fourth ventricle or rhomboid fossa. These are the position of superior cerebellar peduncle that connects the midbrain with the cerebellum, and it is converging above, and it forms the upper lateral boundary of the fourth ventricle. Now coming to the second part of the brainstem, that is known as pons. So we can appreciate from this specimen also. So this is pons here. This is the ventral aspect of the pons. Okay. And we can see in the ventral aspect there is multiple horizontal groove for crossing of corticopontine and corticocerebellar fibers. So from cerebrum the fibers are coming like this, and here the fibers are crossing. So you can see horizontal groups are there in the ventral aspect of the pons, and these fibers finally through the middle cerebellar peduncle ultimately goes to the cerebellum. So this is the position of middle cerebellar peduncle. This is the position of middle cerebellar peduncle, and from this specimen we can appreciate that this is the ventral aspect of the pons, and this is middle cerebellar peduncle that connects the cerebellum with the pons, and through which the corticopontine and corticocerebellar fibers traverse. Now this anterior convex part is also known as basilar part of the pons. There is one groove is there. So this group contains basilar sulcus. This is known as basilar sulcus. This contains basilar artery. Okay, and at the junction of the basilar pons and middle cerebellar peduncle, we can appreciate the roots of the fifth cranial nerve. Junction of the middle cerebellar peduncle and the basilar pons here, we can appreciate the roots of fifth cranial nerve, that is trigeminal nerve. Now, in the lower end of the pons, lower border of the pons, we can appreciate anterior inferior cerebellar artery here. We can appreciate anterior inferior cerebellar artery here in the lower border of the pons. And this is already I have said, this is basilar sulcus that lodges the basilar artery. And this part, this area is related to the cleavus part, where the basi sphenoid and basi occiput meet. So this basilar part of the pons, this ventral part, is related with the cleavus in compact brain. Cleavus means where the basi sphenoid and basi occiput mean, thus that part is known as cleavus. Now let us discuss about the medulla. So this is, we are seeing the ventral aspect of the medulla. Above the medulla there is pons. So this is medulla as a whole, the ventral aspect, and this is the dorsal aspect. So let us first discuss about the ventral aspect. So we can see here in the ventral aspect there is a midline groove that is known as anteromedian fissure, and we can appreciate one. So this one is anteromedian fissure, and this one is anterolateral sulcus, and here this one is posterolateral sulcus. So we can appreciate some elevations in between this fissure and sulcus. So in between anteromedian fissure and anterolateral sulcus, this elevation is known as pyramid, where the corticospinal fiber decussets here. This is the position for corticospinal fibers, and it decussets a bit below here, And in between the anterolateral sulcus and posterolateral sulcus, these elevations are known as olive. This is present bilaterally. So this in this olive, deeper to it, we'll get the inferior olivary complex, olivary nuclear complex. We'll get inferior olivary nuclear complex here, and here we'll get tuber cinerarium here. More laterally, we'll get tuber cinerarium here. So beneath the tuber cinerarium, we'll get the nucleus of the spinal tract of the trigeminal nerve. So in the ventral aspect, we'll get pyramid, then we'll get olive, and here we'll get the inferior cerebellar peduncle here. So if you appreciate from sideways, so you can see this is pyramid, this is olive, and here is a position for tuber cinerarium, and this is inferior cerebellar peduncle. Okay, that forming the lower boundary of the fourth ventricular rhomboid fossa. So this is inferior cerebellar peduncle. Now from this junction between the pons and medulla, we can appreciate this is the position. So we have already said that the junction between the basilar part of the pons and the middle cerebellar peduncle will get the rootlets of the fifth cranial nerve, that is the trigeminal nerve, and we will get both the roots, that is the motor and sensory roots of the trigeminal nerve. And in the junction of the pons and medulla, we will get three cranial nerves. From medial to lateral, these are 6, 7 and 8 cranial nerves. So we will get 6 or abducent nerve rootlets. In between, just above the pyramid, we will get abducent nerve rootlets. Then lateral to it, just above the olive, we will get 7th or facial nerve rootlets, and then more lateral to it, we will get vestibulocochlear nerve rootlets. So in the pons, we will get 5th cranial nerve rootlets. At the junction of the pons and medulla, we will get 6, 7 and 8 from medial to lateral. And in the anterolateral sulcus here, we will get in between pyramid and olive, we will get the rootlets of the 12th cranial nerve, that is the hypoglossal nerve. And in the posterolateral sulcus of the medulla, in the ventral aspect, we will get 9, 10 and 11 cranial nerves. Okay, that is a glossopharyngeal, vagus, accessory. So these are the cranial nerves we will get here. And now let us discuss about the dorsal aspect of the medulla. So we are seeing here, so medulla has two parts actually, that is upper open part and lower closed part. So the lower part of the pons and the upper open part of the medulla, that forms the particular space that is known as the fourth ventricular rhomboid fossa. So this is the upper open part of the medulla, and this is the lower closed part of the medulla. So regarding rhomboid fossa or fourth ventricle, I have discussed in separate video. So let us see the gross structure we can see here. So in the midline, we will get posteromedial sulcus, and here we will get gracile tubercle, and below fasciculus gracilis. More laterally we will get cuneate tubercle, then fasciculus cuneatus. Okay, and this is the position of inferior cerebellar peduncle. So from medial to lateral, we will get gracile tubercle and fasciculus gracilis, cuneate tubercle and fasciculus cuneatus, and inferior cerebellar peduncle. And this is the position of fourth ventricular rhomboid fossa. So this medulla is continuous with the spinal cord, at the level of the middle of the odontoid process of axis, that is the junction of the medulla and the spinal cord. And this is the region of superior medullary filum. We can see here the superior colliculus above, inferior colliculus below, just below the inferior colliculus. This is the region, this space is known as superior medullary filum that forms the roof of the upper part of the fourth ventricle. This part is superior medullary filum. So these are in short about the brainstem. Thank you.